Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Right. Good evening, right?
Good evening to you.
Right.
Hi, good evening.
Right. You're not greeting each other. If I didn't say so, you're going to greet each other. Well, honestly, I had to let you in and let you introduce. Are you not using you're not using your Cipriani access?
Yes, I am.
And you had to be let in?
I'm not sure why.
So you're using your Cipriani email and click on it and it still asks you to be let in by me?
That's correct.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's Google, so anything is possible. Yeah, anything is possible. I put up a note. Is the screen clear to everybody? Is the writing clear on the screen?
Yes, it is.
All right, good. Yeah, I thought it necessary to make this statement so you'd understand, well, what not to do. Okay, what not to do. Importantly, that you're not changing. We had an earthquake. All right, didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know, Ingrid. I didn't see any shaking or rocking or rolling by me. But they said you're not have earthquakes almost every day, because we don't feel them. Anyhow, that the changes you're going to make, the modification, the enhancements, the adjustments, however you want to call it, should really be to ensure that the students get greater clarity, so they can improve what they're doing, they can improve their engagement, their interaction with the course material and their learning, and to achieve the outcome. So you're kind of polishing up your course outcomes. Now, if you have the opinion that your course outcomes are not really taking the students anywhere useful, but that's a discussion you need to have with your head of department. Yeah? But but at the end of the exercise, I want you to be able to present your HOD. These are the I said on Sunday that, and I put the material inside the classroom, that you're going to have some deliverables, and one of them is going to be, all of them going to be reflections. So one of them, I want to see what you started with in terms of your course, if you're changing, if you're making adjustments to your outcomes, if you're making changes to your assessments. I want to see what you started with, and what you ended up with, and your reflection is going to be on that process, and your thinking behind it, and your reasoning. So I'm going to encourage you to share your findings, your concerns, your recommendations, your HOD, so that because they're responsible for the course in terms of the outline and the course, things like that. So changes that are going to affect the course must be taken back to HODs. So I want to make that very clear, but I want you to really get into this and really apply all your knowledge, skills on Bloom's taxonomy in order to polish up. It's all for the students, and this is the end of the day. You don't teach for you teach for students. You teach people who need, who come looking for knowledge. All right? Go ahead, Leslie.
What if you have a course outline that doesn't have any objectives, like it's not complete? Because some of the outlines that they're from years ago and they're not updated with module objectives and those type of things. So what do you do then?
Do you have course objectives or just not module objectives?
You need to look and make sure that I'm saying what I'm
I wouldn't be surprised, eh?
No, there's no course objective. It just tells the topic outline, the name of the
All right.
yeah, topic outline.
So in other words, you have a blank canvas.
Yes.
Excellent. I mean, who wouldn't relish the thought of having a blank canvas?
Right, and which is why I write my module objectives.
All right. So
An overview on my own, because so what do I do in that case? Because I saw the note that you had put there.
Uh-huh.
I don't want any problems.
No, I don't foresee it being a problem. And in fact, every course in the college must have course outlines. And so we're kind of working at the other level to try to accomplish this. And I'm going to be putting on some projects to accomplish this. But if you have a couple of courses, then you have to work backwards. Normally, the course design process starts with the analysis, and then you kind of determine what your course, out of the analysis of what you want to do, then you determine your outcomes, and from your outcomes you build your course. Right. Now you have a course without any outcomes. So what you need to do now is looking at, and you've taught the course, I guess, more than once, so you're fairly familiar with what is expected out of the course, and therefore you build your objectives, the outcomes out of that. You work backwards.
Right. So that's what I've been doing.
Great.
I just, because as I said, I saw what you wrote before, so I don't want any problems.
No. It's just that because there's an approval process for courses in the college. Okay, there's a program review committee that looks at courses and approves them, and so the course outlines come up and the outcomes come up. I've been doing a lot of work in the committee that. So I want to make sure that we didn't cross any committee lines, you know. So making sure the proper approvals are sought to make sure any changes to our course.
So for those outlines that aren't completed with that process yet, I can go ahead and write my
Go ahead and develop it, and then, as I said, let me just to back up the note. Make sure you run it by, you take it to your HOD, have a discussion. You know, the HOD is in charge of the programs and what goes on in the program. Right. And so if you have a discussion with them and they give you the green light to go ahead, and they will work retroactively through the approvals committee to get it ratified, I guess, at the next meeting. But it's important that you cannot be teaching courses without course outcomes. Yeah, because it's also an accreditation issue for us as well. Right, so any other questions, anyone on this? There's a red note here. No other questions? Excellent. All right, let's begin looking at the Bloom's taxonomy. But Bloom, the taxonomy is only one part of what Benjamin Bloom back in the day was all about. He was an education, I think, psychologist. And you'll find a lot of a great deal of learning theories came out of psychology. You've heard of Pavlov? You've heard of Pavlov's dog?
Yep.
Right? So then you would have heard of Pavlov and Jean Pache. These are all psychologists. A lot of education theory, education design is grounded in a lot of psychology. So it's not surprising educational psychologists and psychologists have come up with learning theories and so on. So he came up with these three domains of learning: the cognitive domain, which is knowledge; the affective domain, which is attitudes; and the psychomotor domain, which is skills. But he didn't develop a whole lot on the psychomotor domain. He didn't spend a lot of time dealing with that. So we have the objectives and skills that help you process information. This is where the taxonomy resides. It's a cognitive taxonomy. He also did a little taxonomy, but not as great in the affective domain. But it's useful that, and maybe one day we'll take a look at it. But in reading it, I found it very, very useful, and it reminded me of the whole aspect of reflective exercises. And if you miss the meeting on Sunday, the notes from the meeting is in your group, in your group, I would say folder forum on the Google Classroom. The notes are there. I've thrown in some videos as well. We didn't do a recording, but the notes are there. I think the slides are there, so you can have a read and see what we covered in terms of also the deliverables. So yeah, so we have this reflective, I've given you 3 deliverables. because I want to also provide you with a certificate based on the work you've done and based on the no problem doing you want us ahead. Based on the work you've done, I think you should be recognized. And the college is all about making sure that lecturers get that kind of recognition, and the professional development is being seen to. And this is one way. Okay, so the cognitive domain was put together back in 1956. It's a pretty long time ago, and the taxonomy came out, and therefore then there was a revision made. I can't remember the year the revision was made, but the revision was made by colleagues of his. So it doesn't make sense looking at the old one. Let's deal with the new one, which is the revision. The cognitive domain suggests that objectives can be ranked in order of cognitive difficulty. And this is just a review. I'm not trying to teach you. I hope I'm not teaching you anything new here. Okay? That was not my goal. So it's about the cognitive difficulty from what we call lower order thinking to higher order thinking. And therefore you want to, you don't jump on a bicycle. You start off by, walking the bike with a little, a tricycle. So there are steps to learning, and therefore those steps are still in play, whether you're in primary school, kindergarten, secondary school, or in higher education. The taxonomy is not just classifying a classification scheme. It is in fact an effort to arrange thought process hierarchy. So if you look at the lower end, which is at the bottom there, it rises to the top, to the more complex hierarchical approach to learning. And each level is kind of dependent. The higher levels are dependent on the lower levels. On the student's ability to complete the previous level so they can move on to the other levels. So it's going to be hard for a student, and you can think of anything in any course you're doing to branch off into this in the third chapter of the text without going through the first two chapters. And so the same with the taxonomy. It teaches that phased approach to learning. It's important. When if you're going to sleep on me, turn off your camera. Don't be sleeping your eyes shut there and you're on camera, because everybody's going to see you. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. So we're going from knowledge, being able to remember, recall facts, basic concepts, right the way up. So let's just run through some of the from the bottom. Remember, that level is you're trying to get the student to recall previously learned content. You're recalling facts and basic concepts. So when you're structuring your learning, your lesson, you may want to rely on previous knowledge you've learned. So you want to structure your lesson to include what they may have learned before in order to take them into the higher place. You may have to do a little recap sometimes, that students can learn or recall or remember, go back over, and then you take them on further. I remember when my daughter went into, it's not Trinidad, Harrison's College in Barbados, first year passing common entrance. I remember they said to the parents gathered there that the first year of secondary school is all about repeating the common entrance work. And I was kind of surprised that that's how they started. That they spent the entire year, their first year, was just going over the stuff the children had already done. I guess they're following the right way, recalling, remembering, not jumping into a lot, and then they took them gradually up the line. Second one is understand. Master the meaning of content, able to explain ideas or concepts. At this level, the student has the ability to understand what is being said, to be able to present his or her own way, the content, to understand the conclusions that follow. That's understand. Apply. Applies what is learned, the application part of the knowledge. You remember first, you recall it, you understand, you have a grasp of it. Apply means I can use it in in new situations. Use information in new situations. If they're not able to take this information and apply to something new, they really are not really applying it, and they're just staying at the level. They're not moving up a level. So the application is when you give them some unfamiliar territory to work in, and take the equation they've learned and apply the equation in a different circumstance. Okay? Out of their comfort zone. Analyze, that breaks down the content and structure of the material. This level, the education goal is based on logical thinking. Being able to take something apart, have a look at it, dissect it, and arrive at some a thought about it, some opinion, draw an opinion on it, and be able to pull the parts apart and see what is underlying there. Evaluate, that's the next level as we move up. And create, in the old taxonomy, create came before evaluate. But in the revision, they kind of reversed it and said, evaluate comes before you actually create. So this one, there's a bit of judgment has to take place, the value of the content for a given purpose. Can this work in this circumstance? Yeah, that's what you're looking at. And how the learner interprets the information, how they interpret the situation. It's all about judgment. But it's not guesswork. It's informed judgment based on what they remember, what they understand, what they've applied before, the analysis they've done. Just bring them to the point where they can now look at a situation, look at the information, and make a judgment on it. And then the last level, the top level, is create, where they formulate and build new structures. They're doing new things from existing knowledge and skills. So they're developing new things, new ideas, new concepts. They're able to do a plan. They're able to create. They're able to develop, design. These are some of the verbs that you'll be looking at. The level's goal implies the ability to combine known elements and create whole models or structures that did not exist before. So the creativity, you see a lot in the arts. You teach somebody how to paint, and therefore they create a beautiful painting. Yeah, that's what it's about. It's that process of making something out of when something didn't exist. They create. So that's basically a run through. Do you have any examples from your own experience of any way you've applied this in terms of your lesson planning? Do you consider these levels, these stages in your lessons, in your content? Do you think about these things? And how deep? Please do. No, I'm asking a question. I hope you're going to answer my question.
What I found out using taxonomy in assignments and assessments, sometimes I found myself having classes where they have students who never really did practice project management. While using the new taxonomy, I had to try, my challenge was to try to design assessments now that would kind of fulfill the one who is mature in the industry to the one who probably midway to the one that is new. In getting from the bottom part of the pyramid, the yellow part, remember, into create. And it can be a bit challenging sometimes because you have somebody. You don't want to give assessments now for the strong ones, so to speak. So we have classes like that sometimes, big classes of 50 and that is too weak for their level in our field of project management, and at the same time too difficult for someone who never really worked in the field. I don't know what kind of advice you would have in those type of situations, because it's easy when you have a class with HR managers or project managers who actually practice in it, who did maybe some other courses elsewhere and whatever. I'm pretty familiar with it versus people who just started it and never really
Yeah. Okay. I see your point. Anybody else wants to come in before I come in? Anybody else have advice for doing? Is that your experience? Have you experienced you have different levels of acumen, training, understanding in your classes?
I shall, in our field, human resource management, I have had students who are 18 and 17 and 18 straight out of school, and you have students who are practicing HR personnel already and want to enhance their skills. So the level of knowledge and practical experience is very diverse. And that challenge too of assessing persons, because they go straight out of school, it's very difficult for them to create at that level, while you have those who are practicing that evaluate and create level will be a lot easier. So as Derwin said, the assessment is always a challenge because we accepted students at all those levels, so we have to create the content for all those levels and evaluate fairly at the same time. So it is a challenge.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Okay, great. I love the answer. But getting back, let me just go back here quickly. Many years ago, I was contracted by a government agency, not in Trinidad, where I was teaching entrepreneurship. Well, no, let me be very clear. I was a consultant facilitator in accounting, which is my first field. And I was teaching entrepreneurs the basics of accounting. And entrepreneurs came in all ages, all shapes, all sizes, all educational backgrounds. My classes used to be 40, 50, sometimes 60 of them. And you would have people who only had primary school education. Some went to secondary school and they have left midway. Some let me say the range from people who had primary school education to people who had post-grad education. People who were doctors or vet or dentists, professionals in that regard. And that was my class composition. So after a couple of rounds, because this program would run a couple times a year, and after 1-2 rounds, I say, you know what? This textbook is a waste of time. This textbook is not going to help people who struggle. So I had to I tossed the textbook one side and got very, very creative and redesigned the method of delivery. I mean, accounting doesn't change. There's no change in accounting. But I redesigned the delivery to ensure that nobody was left behind. I made it extremely interactive, where they almost taught themselves accounts by delving into their personal experience and being able to use that knowledge of personal experience given the theory I was providing them, that they could be able to get a hold of the of the work. And I found that was fairly successful. Very proud of myself in getting that done. But the range was staggering at times. I mean, it was really staggering, but there's nothing you can do about it. These are people who said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and the government tried to assist them by providing them with training and so forth. So I've had that experience. And no doubt, I guess in a lot of schools, you're going to have that experience. Soprani may have it more because we tend to have a little different kind of bottom level where we cut off people at. I don't know if you guys have access to the records of students in terms of their educational records. To know, do you have access to that information before you start to teach?
No, we don't.
Have you ever thought about asking, can I see what the composition of my class is like? Because it would help you, I would imagine. Plan for your class. If you see a bunch of teeny boppers coming into place with some senior people, then you need to restructure, you need to rethink how you're going to get those teeny boppers up to scratch. So I don't know if that's possible. I don't know how difficult it is to get just a sense of the level, you know, I mean, just the level of education the class has. Maybe there's something you can talk to introduce. I think that will help you in advance. Yes, Leslie.
I usually do something in the first day, the icebreaker, where I would ask them. I usually something about you. Something personal, something professional, and something peculiar. And usually in the professional, they'll tell you, well, I've been working on this is my first time in tertiary level, or I just came out of high school, you know, that kind of way.
Okay.
Get the information without seeming like you trying to.
So you have a sneaky approach. Excellent.
Yes.
I like your sneaky approach. Yeah, I go ahead, Owen.
My approach is similar to what Leslie had said. I go for a little form, the introduction, get to know the students more, to understand at what level they are at, if they have any experience in the field, and so on. And that can help me with the teaching, the assessment. What I find happening in those cases sometimes, I have to have another session after the session. Because really and truly, if you feel further breakdown in that regard. And as people will say, I don't want to just stay to remember. Sometimes, you know, when they come up from the CNC level, a little more challenge and kind of goes with it. I don't want that at this level. So I try to come out of this.
Okay, great. Anyone else before we move on?
Then when we had the pandemic, well, we started this course last year, I did the part where I asked the quiz, where I asked the students beforehand to answer the questions about themselves. So it was like a 20 questions. And I told them I would use that information to help get the studies for them to understand more. Because in for my course, I didn't recommend a section call for them.
What faculty? What do you teach? I didn't get
I
that.
teach strategic IT for 21st century.
Okay.
Basically, I have to tell all the students, you have to unlearn all the things you heard about this course or what you think this course is about. But the first time I had the course, it was scheduled in the computer lab. I learned the first and last time in the computer class. It has nothing to do with computers.
Okay.
So I could use it information. So we went to one of the regular classes. But I had examples with each one of them. So depending on their background, I would give them an example that they could understand. So that from now on, when you go to work, all the material you're going to learn from work is not like just on the book. You get the answer for all your assignments. All right up on your eyes, but it's for you to pull it out.
Agreed.
Rather than, so it's something like can't do that. None of them could copy from each other's assignment.
All right, so we have two raised hands. Zion, who came first, Teresa and Cheryl. Oh, there's a queue.
Well, this is Cheryl. But Dwight, what about if you have students who never worked? So they have no examples, they have no work.
They know what place to go to.
Yeah, and to reference.
Place or business places that they visit. Yeah, but I would ask them where they work, but everybody so far was working. But if somebody wasn't working, I would give the examples I would use business places that they frequent. So I would ask them like, come on, this is a massive true value. And then I would start to give them certain hints to look at when they go to these places, and they will start to see the material from the course right in front of their eyes that they didn't know. So I give them examples in the workplace and outside the workplace.
I am trying to understand how this is supposed to be done, because in my courses, even before the first day, you have set most of the higher level exercises, and you have a work plan that you put up in classroom. So it is not influenced by the students that you have, but by the requirements of the course. I don't know. Seeing that we are both in project management,
and the work plan helps in that regard as well. Practicing more or less close to the project management field, and as Dwight and Cheryl was saying earlier, sometimes they have no work experience at all, and they find out they don't work with them. So I regard and I look at projects that the community project if they've done at home or something like that, and try to build from that, Yeah.
If I can offer a suggestion, one of the things I found very useful is formative assessment. Well, ungraded, where people get to challenge themselves in basic information. So you want to have an information gap because of lack of experience and expertise and former training and prior knowledge in an area. So they're all in the same classroom, but your work is set at a particular level. But you recognize you have some students who are not going to be at that level or not at that level as yet. And therefore you have to be able to draw on provide them, and I think somebody mentioned, provide them with some supplemental information, some sources they can go and read and to catch up under some of the concepts and so on. But what also may help this is if you develop and design some multiple choice quizzes. They're not graded, actually they're self-grading, where the student gets to keep attempting it until they get something they're happy with, but it doesn't count towards their final grade. It's just an exercise in where they develop their thinking. So if you get up, if you have, and this is not something you're going to be doing as the semester starts. This is being done prior to the semester. So if you go into your class and you realize you have a mixed bag of students, and some at very low level, some very high level, maybe you want to bridge the gap for some of those who are struggling with some supplemental information. You want to provide it there and make it known. I mean, this is what they call additional. I think I used to have a forum called additional resources. So you stick it in your additional resources and you direct those who are having some problems. Well, look in here, this X is in here. And then there are a couple of quizzes you can do. It will self evaluate, and you can know how well you're understanding the concept. And you do that a couple times. You have a bank of quizzes that you can put out there for your students to help bridge the learning gap or the knowledge gap in this case in your course of study. Now let's go back here to why it blooms. And a very simple answer is to help educators formulate learning outcomes. That was the whole, because as I said earlier, a course design, after you get past the analysis of what the need is, the most critical step is establishing what do you want the course to achieve. Pardon me, and what are the steps towards achieving those outcomes? What are the learning outcomes? So Bloom looked at it and said, you know what, we need to make sure that the course outcomes are formulated well, are precise, and the teachers have the information in which to guide their students towards these outcomes. Because if you're teaching whatever you're teaching, but your learning outcomes is not taking the students to an understanding of what you're supposed to be teaching, then they're not really learning what they're supposed to be learning. And also to the second aspect of the taxonomy is to guide lecturers, the guide for devising assessment criteria tailored to the type of cognitive domains and mental cognition skills being assessed. So again, it's both for the outcomes, and the assessments, but in between outcomes and assessments, we also have the content. The content tends to take care of itself when we are using textbooks, but we're no longer in the textbook era, are we? We're in a different kind of OER section where you're putting together resources. So you have to be careful and make sure as you have content, and you guys are speaking about it, you have people who require some lower level content to get them up to the standard of those who've been running this race for a while. And so you have to make sure you can provide them with that bridge. Next item, learning outcomes. Why are learning outcomes important to a course? Well, they're the foundation that you as educators would lay for your course to make sure it has a solid foundation so you can determine the rest of the structure. So with proper learning outcomes, you therefore, as I said, derive the course. So if in Leslie's case, when she gets the learning outcomes, she may have to make some adjustments, some tweaks to make sure that that's a good foundation, the learning outcomes, but the rest of the course has a very good structure to it that meets the requirements of the outcomes. Learning outcomes helps you as educators to focus on what is important in the course. One, what you're teaching, what you're asking the learners to do, what you need to provide to make sure that learners are getting what they need. So this is one of the jobs of the learning outcomes. It gives you some parameters to work with to ensure I have asked them to do A. Do they have the resources to do A? Do they have sufficient knowledge, practice, exposure, guidance to do what I've asked them to do through the learning outcomes? Learning outcomes also helps the learners to understand what is required of them, and this is very key. What is required of them? It's not for you so much, but it's more for your students to understand. And you'd be surprised, many of your students do not read the learning outcomes. They just get right to the material. And so I think it's important that you, in your first session, that you direct their attention to the learning outcomes and you answer any questions about the learning outcomes. Spend a couple minutes going through the learning outcomes so they understand. This is the path ahead, but this is the destination. This is where you want to get to, and therefore you need to spend time going through the learning outcomes with them. They help them to understand, you sit and understand what they need to demonstrate by the end of the week, by the end of the module, by the end of the course. So it gives them information in order to plan, in order to attack, in order to engage, in order to get involved in and interact with the content, with their peers and so on. So you're giving them information that they desperately need to move forward. When learning outcomes are meaningful, they describe the learning in specific and concrete terms that tells learners what they will be learning and doing. Concrete and specific terms. This is where you are, what I'm saying, you're going to be going over your course outlines, you're going to focus on your learning outcomes. Are these learning outcomes meaningful? Do they pass the test of meaningful learning outcomes? Do they describe, are they specific, are they concrete? Are they actually speaking to the learner? And I like the more personal learning outcome. At the end of this course, you will be. So you're speaking directly to the student, not some abstract person. They also must be measurable. So when your outcomes are measurable, you can observe the learning through the assessment, because your assessment tool measures learning. Okay? The assessment of student learning. So your measurable outcomes. So your assessment tells you if learning has taken place. And this is probably much easier in computational type courses and accounting, those doing computational type things. You can observe do they understand the concepts, because they've gotten the spreadsheet right, they've gotten the balance sheet right, so they seem to have a good understanding of the learning. Next, about learning outcomes. When outcomes are written in a way that is not meaningful, and this is the reverse now, and measurable, it is difficult for learners to really understand what you're asking them to do. I don't know if this has been experienced with your students that seem lost in the work, they're lost in the assessment, because they're really not understanding where they're supposed to be going. Where's the destination on this particular topic, on this module? And that's I don't even want to touch modules, because I know many of you don't have module outcomes, and some of you have too many module outcomes. So I want you all to think course outcomes. This is the broad ones, and then you come down to your module outcomes. What do you want to achieve module by module? That helps keep your students on track. If all you have are course outcomes, then your students can be a bit adrift. But if you've gone a step further the planner or designer has gone a bit further and have designed module level outcomes, then the student knows for the next 7 days, 10 days, this is the destination I need to get to. Okay, so that helps them to know exactly what they're doing. So it's not meaningful and not measurable. They're really giving the learners a difficulty to understand what you want them to do. It also makes it difficult to show that your course is delivering what it wants to. So having measurable and meaningful outcomes makes the process of education that much more, I wouldn't say enjoyable, but beneficial to both you as a teacher and to the student. But education is about the student, not about the educator. So some of the things you want to do, you want to work with action verbs that describe what the student should be able to do after the course. So again, using the proper verbs, and the taxonomy is full of verbs. You want to select a verb that captures the action the student will be able to take that demonstrate the knowledge. Articulate, explain, describe, or a skill in terms of analyze, design, write, develop, create, test in a question. So you want to select carefully the verb. The verb is important. You learn from primary school that verbs are doing or action words. Yeah, the verb really describes what is the action to follow. So if you want them to create something and you tell them analyze rather than create, then they're not learning. They're not creating, they're analyzing. So you've got to choose your verbs correctly And there's a lot of verbs out there in taxonomy that can help you choose the correct verb that really guides the student as to where they need to go. Use a single clear action verb for each learning outcome. I try, and if those of you, all of you here have done the Bloom taxonomy, and I want you to go back. If you can bring back up, you should have your assessments you did for me in the classroom. I made, and out of all the, and strangely, out of all the assignments I corrected, that one gave me the most work. I actually had to design a not a question bank, a comment bank. I kept finding myself repeating myself. So when I made a comment on Derwin's work, I put it in a Word document one side, and I keep capturing all the comments I'm making because I'm realizing I have to make a lot of comments, and a lot of the comments are the same comments I'm making. So I want you, part of your exercise here, to go back into that and look at the comments I attached to your assignment, and start at that point there. Look at the comment. I mean, if I didn't have a bad comment to make or anything, I just I gave you some trophies and medals and so on. I had some fun with that. I'm sure you did as well. Everybody like a trophy and a medal. But I made some comments, and I want you to go back and look at those comments, because that's the exercise you did fresh off doing the chapter. So I want you to go back to your assignments and look at it, read the comments again, and see if you can capture or understand what I'm saying to you, or what I said to you then, in terms of little errors you may have made. Some of you had the order wrong. Some of you, there's a lot of issues. And that, do you all have comment banks when you're correcting? That you keep from year to year? No? Well, I think your classroom, I mean, you can develop a comment bank for your classroom. So your classroom, grading. There's a comment bank. I keep one in my Word document, and I copying and pasting all the time, making some tweaks, and I'm doing that. All right. Where was I? Single use verb. Yeah, I try to tell people, don't have 2 and 3 verbs in a learning outcome. That is going in 2 or 3 different directions, generally speaking. So try, if you need to say it in 3 verbs, maybe 3 different things your student is required to do. And if you ask them to do 3 different things, then kind of do 3 lines, 3 outcomes that speaks to each of those steps. But I think what we try to do in a learning outcome is to create steps for the outcome, rather than create just the outcome. We try to give them the steps inside of a learning outcome. Maybe the steps can be one-liners as well. So you want them to achieve this step. Then when they're successful, they learn this step. But having complex outcomes does not help the student. It doesn't really, they pick up on the first verb, and they generally will ignore the other verbs inside. So don't have this. Have a single clear action verb for each outcome. It helps also the student to determine if they've accomplished the outcome. One verb, they know they created something, they analyzed something, they recall something. It gives them a sense of clarity that you want for your student. Yeah, I have done this. But when you mix up these verbs in there, it gets too long, it gets difficult to follow. Make it short and sweet, but yeah, carry to the point. The learning objective is not supposed to be a learning exercise. It's not supposed to be a lesson you're teaching them in the objective, in the outcome. It is where you want them to get to. Then you will teach them in your lesson plan how to achieve that goal. Yeah? So I think sometimes we tend to put in a little too much in the outcome, because we also try to billing in the lesson plan inside of there as well. All right, so they can know whether the goal has been met or whether they've done half the goal. Did I do the create part well? Did I do the design part of that learning outcome well? Did I do half? If they create, they design, so they will know exactly what they've done. And choose a verb that allows you to measure their learning process level. Choose a verb that gives you information. Now, assessment, and I'm going to spend some time on this as into the future, looking at things like assessments, formative assessments, and why they're necessary and why they're essential for learning. Assessment is about you helping the student to learn. Assessment is not a gotcha activity. It's about helping the student along in their journey to identify these mileposts, that the mileposts has come. Are you with the milepost? Have you reached there? Okay, so that is what the assessment is supposed to be. And so I really want you to encourage you to develop a lot of formative assessments. I've created 2 sections over the last semester, I think I did last year, where I had graded assignments and a section for ungraded assignments. I extracted them out of the modules to put them right to the top so students can see from the onset what are the assignments they're responsible for, so they have a sense of the work that's ahead of them. And also I decided I would give you a section where you can put it ungraded. I want you to use the ungraded to give them ungraded. Ungraded helps the weaker students get a bit stronger. And so you don't have to talk as much in the class and go over work in the class because you've designed little activity. I said these Google Forms doing these little quizzes. A quiz is a very useful way. And you can make a quiz as simple or as complex. You can have a simple starter or more intermediate and an advanced kind of quiz where you get in them so they're not feeling threatened. They can go and they can use it and they can develop their own understanding through these quizzes you're giving them to interact with. And you can have the quiz scramble so they remember the order of things. You're doing. Mm-hmm.
Semester is the exemplar. But just for clarity, if you could explain what you expected, what was
an exemplar? What I expected an exemplar?
Yes.
A lot of textbooks provide exemplars. You ever been through a textbook where there's a worked example? I spent a lot of years doing accounting, so accounting textbooks have a lot of exemplars. So you're doing a chapter on depreciation, and somewhere down to the back of that chapter, you're gonna see a sample question or problem, and then they're going to show you the worked example of it. So the student, and I always advise my students, but I taught it as well. I taught at Cato as well. I used to teach my students, I said, use the work example. This is your bread and butter here. So you read the question, you look at the steps that they take, you follow those steps, and then the student is confident because they can look back. If they get lost, they can look back at the question, look at the steps, look at the results, and be able to learn the process. So an exemplar helps your students self-learn. Again, it saves your energy. You don't have to be explaining this, in a class. So an exemplar is an example of what you wish the student to achieve. The steps that you expect, how you want it to look, what it should look like when you're done. Yeah? So you can find some exemplars, I guess, all over the internet and pick what you want to pick. And so if you have a question that you want your students to do, you may give them an exemplar of what are the steps. Again, this helps you to help them, and it helps you. So you don't be talking your head off and getting tired and weary because you find, and then what happens, one student didn't come to class this week when you explain the assignment, then turn up the next week and they want to know, but because they missed the class, so you have to go back to all of the exemplar is in the Google Classroom. Have a look at the exemplar. When you've gone through that and you have a question, tell me what in the exemplar you did not understand. Yeah, so that helps you to teach without exhausting yourself. Because, yeah, you have to be explaining and explaining and explaining to students. Anybody have any questions on exemplars? And I think I made space for the rubrics in there as well. You know, so your students have a sense of what is expected of them. Just like the objectives. Go ahead, Felix. But go ahead, any question, no matter. Well, I have a perspective, and other people have perspective. Some people see no difference between the course objectives and the course outcomes. I'm from a different school of thought on the matter. I see the objectives as what the lecturer says he's going to do in the course. And I see the outcomes is what the student is expected to accomplish or achieve at the end of the course. Yeah? So the course outcomes, they're connected because the outcomes are connected to the objectives. And you may have the objective of a course, maybe a paragraph. And I'm sure Leslie said you have a paragraph for your course objectives, right? Leslie going to sleep? She's abandoned me already?
No, Leslie.
I was talking to your HOD about something. I can't do it without Leslie in my class. I mean, it's impossible. So you have a paragraph, right, about the objectives of the course?
No, I made a paragraph to explaining what I'm doing, but
No,
outline,
right.
This outline that I have it now in one passage here. All it has is a topic.
I mean, yes, I'm not talking about the module, I'm talking about the course, right? At the beginning of the course.
Oh, no, yeah, there's a paragraph.
There's a paragraph which I will call, they call that the description, or they may have a description and the objective as well.
Yes.
What the course is intended to do,
Yes.
and out of that you have what the student is expected to be able to do.
Correct is right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my perspective, Felix, on it. Others have different perspectives. I prefer mine. Just saying. You know, the objective is what we're going to do, what the course is about, and how we're going to proceed, what we're going to teach you, and the outcome to me is what you're going to learn. What are you going to be able to do and practice and demonstrate at the end of the course? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay, great. Short sentences are dragging. Write your learning outcomes in short sentences to maintain clarity. Short sentences, no paragraphs, people. Your objectives can be written as a paragraph, but your outcomes must be a short sentence that the student can understand. Don't write in language that they have to go get a dictionary to interpret. Don't do that to them. They have the descriptor, which says what they're going to accomplish must be clear, and very importantly, the learning outcome descriptors should be observable and measurable, and there should be a clear alignment between learning outcomes, learning activities, and assessments. Alignment is the core, is the spine of education. Remember, go back to the process of course design, learning outcomes, and then you end with the evaluation of those outcomes. So everything between the outcome and the assessment must be lining back up. So there must be very clear alignment on that. So again, as is mentioned here, must have an alignment to make sure that you can't say this is what I want you to achieve, but don't give you the materials to get you there. Don't give you the understanding to get you there. Yeah? Yeah. I don't know, what did I just say? I said, right. I said the objectives are normally a paragraph of what the course is about. The outcomes are sentences, short sentences that I. Or they said the descriptors, or the descriptors should be observable and measurable.
Right.
There should be a clear alignment between the learning outcomes
Right.
and the learning activities and assessments. So it must be alignment. And I'll give you.
You said about the assessment. You said something about the assessment that I didn't get.
There must be an alignment between all factors.
You said something else.
Okay. I'm sure. Right.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
You know what you're looking for until ask me what I say. Leslie, I don't understand you half the time. Anyway. Leslie, why are you bothering to answer me? I don't know.
You know that's what we do, Nigel.
I know, back and forth. Ping pong. Yeah, so you think about you begin with objectives, you end with assessment, so everything must be in a straight line getting the student there. Otherwise, you're not educating anybody. Okay? All right. I want to go through something I came across that's very interesting. Strong direct learning outcomes, weak direct learning outcomes. And let's see if we can. Let's look at the weak. You can read this, right? Everybody can read it? Oh, sorry, asking. Anyone? Okay, great. You have good eyes. Excellent. Unrelated to curricular goals or goals are treated as outcomes. Unrelated. That's a weak outcome. The strong outcome is it flows from the curricular goals. Now, the curricular goals is what your curriculum is made up of, and therefore you design your outcomes based on. So your courses are in a program, and there are program outcomes, and the program outcomes will align with the course outcomes, and your course outcomes will align with your module outcomes. So there's alignment in your outcomes. But imagine a student has an outcome that not dealing with the course at all, has nothing to do, unrelated to the curriculum. And that's very possible. There's a process I would like to, well, I'm not getting what I want to do. There's a process called curriculum mapping that helps us to determine, if the outcomes really belong in the course. Yeah? Because this tends to happen. You have an outcome, but there's no content, nor there's no assessment on it. It's just there. And it's not really it doesn't seem to be any part of the course, because for it to be part of the course, wouldn't there not be content on it? I'm just asking, yeah? Make sense? If it's part of the course, there would be content that describes this activity. If there's no content about the activity and there's no assessment of the objective, then the objective doesn't really belong in that course. Meaningful. Get at faculty interest regarding student learning of relevant knowledge and skills. A weak one, not meaningful. Selected for ease rather than actual value. You have like a throwaway objective. There's no real value to it. You just add it to make up numbers in your list of outcomes. Or meaningfulness, perhaps chosen in a hurry under pressure. It's a very, I like the way this person writes this stuff. These things happen. That's why review is very important and mapping is very important, and make sure that we're doing the right things for the right reason. A weak one, or as a stressor job, focus on core skills knowledge to be gained in a specific course, minor or major. Makes sense. Great. What's the weak one? Focus on secondary skills or knowledge. Yeah. Provide a list of all skills, knowledge, interests without prioritizing the most important. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's not a very good one. Must have a kind of focus. It must be ready. Don't waste people's time. Don't spend time focusing on a lot of skills that don't need to be focused on. What is the person? What are the competencies? And the college is moving into competency-based education, and we're looking at competencies and developing those. But you got to focus on what you want the students to learn or do, At the end of this, what are the skills and the knowledge and sometimes the attitudes? Skills, knowledge, and attitudes. And where does the attitudes come from? Could you tell me? Skills, knowledge, and attitudes. Where do they come from? I said it at the beginning. No takers? Really? You've heard the phrase knowledge, skills, and attitudes? KSA? You're here to teach, you're here to carry students to the knowledge, skills, and attitudes in a particular area. Yes, competency development, but there's something I said earlier on. Look at this. Knowledge, attitude, and skills. KSA. Knowledge, skills, and attitude. Look at right there. And that's what competency is based on. You all forget already. All right. The cognitive, knowledge, affective, the attitude, the psychomotor, the skills. This is the domains, the 3 domains of learning. All right, let me get back to where I was. Thank you. Was it Rana? Yeah, the competency. Those are how you. Those are some of the boundaries of competency, knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So you want to make sure the knowledge and the skills and the attitudes to be gained are specific and not just all over the shop. Let me hurry on here. Right, strong outcome verbs are sharp, clear, specific. Write, calculate, explain, predict, describe, create, analyze, evaluate. Those are the kind of verbs, and the taxonomy has a lot of them. And, you know, it makes it crystal clear what the students should know, what they're able to do at the end of the course. Yeah, very good. That's a very strong outcome. What's our weak one? They are vague. Understand, comprehend, demonstrate, and understanding of. Don't really get at the intended outcome. How exactly do students demonstrate by doing what? You know? Like another one, a 1 verb per learning outcome. Can't stress that enough. I've seen too many learning outcome paragraphs from you people. Sorry, from you gentle people. Too many paragraphs. Multiple verb learning outcomes, not healthy, not good at all for the student. Causes confusion, causes uncertainty, and it does not enhance learning. Brief and to the point, bullet point length is fine. In most cases, students will be able to, as they call the stem of a learning outcome. Wordy, packing in multiple ideas, perhaps including assessment, demonstration. Yeah, so you're putting the steps of the assessment of the learning there. So here it is in front of you. Readily observable, demonstrable, measurable, thorough in thought, assessment process. Not easy to observe, demonstrate, measure. Well, okay, the opposite. Manageable. Sorry, yeah. Not too many outcomes. Not more than 8 outcomes for a course. Not more than 20 for a department program. Fewer the better. Unmanageable, too many outcomes. Overwhelming as department programs. Have to figure out what to assess of. And yeah, a lot of outcomes tend to signal these people not sure what they're doing. So they're snatching at everything. Discipline specific much of the time. Correct, good idea. Overwhelming general education skills, even within a department program. So it's fine to have general courses and you teach general education, but when it comes to your program, it should be signature to your program, specific to your program. These are the outcomes we want to achieve. All right. We're almost there, people. Don't run away yet. Don't make it lose you yet. Assessments using the taxonomy. If the actual demonstration of student learning occurs through student work that is designed with the learning outcome or outcomes in mind, assessment needs to be relevant to the knowledge or skill in question. That's a broad guideline there. Now I have a nice little example here. I really love finding this and I want to share this. I find this is so perfect. All right, here's an example of an assessment created using Bloom. It's a kind of wacky assessment, but it makes a point. They say the first step in creating the assessment is to be clear on what the student should have learned from the lesson being taught. We all agree on it. No problem with that. Then pick a singular topic and ask questions based on each level, each of the levels. All right? Not a bad idea. So you get a sense. Here's an example of using prohibition era, the topic for an American history lesson class. So everybody knows what prohibition is, right? Great. You couldn't drink. You couldn't drink. All right. So there's a knowledge question. Define prohibition. So you recall some knowledge. There's a comprehension question. Explain the relationship of each of the following to prohibition. So they give them a list of things. So you have to have some understanding. So you did knowledge, now you're doing understanding. Here comes the application question. Could the methods that proponents of the temperance movement be used in a bid to create a smoking prohibition amendment? Explain your. So they have to apply the information, apply the knowledge. That's the application question. Then there's analysis. Compare and contrast the motives of temperance leaders with those of doctors in a fight over prohibition. Some analysis takes place there. There's a synthesis, or and this is the old Bloom they're using here, so they have the synthesis before the, so the synthesis question is they create a poem or song that could have been used by temperance leaders to argue for the passage, and then you have the evaluation question, which would have come before, evaluate prohibition in terms of its effects on the American economy. Students have to answer 6 different questions, one from each level of Bloom's taxonomy. The spiraling of knowledge shows a greater depth of understanding on the student's part. Yes, Teresa, your hand and your mic is...
I'm not seeing the other questions that we do.
Oh, sir. And nobody tell me. Go down low. All right. That's 7, that's 8. Sorry. Thank you, Teresa. Only fall asleep at me, you know. Only getting bored. Look. This is part, well, this part 2, they have to explain, these items. They have to explain, yeah?
All part of the comprehension.
Comprehension, yeah, that's part of the comprehension question. So they went on to the application, the analysis, the evaluation, and the creation question. So they use all the levels in one question. I found it was very interesting. They use all the levels of Bloom in one question. Well, not one question, in one topic. Excuse me. One topic, they use all the 6 levels of the taxonomy, which I thought was a very fantastic example of how you can apply some of it. What do you guys think? Made sense? Yeah, it's challenging, eh? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me how they did it. But my notes are going to be in the classroom, you know, so you could go back through it. I mean, have you been to the classroom? I keep putting stuff there for all year. I don't know if you're still getting emails that I putting things there. I put things up to the day in the classroom, and you'll only see your group, eh? You'll see 4, 5, and 6, but those are empty. You see your group and 4, 5, and 6 because those are empty. There are no students in them. Well, only me in that one. But your group is specific to you, and only members of Group A, Group 1, can access Group 1 forum. Okay, so this is going to be in there, and I found this very useful way of demonstrating how it can be used. Yes, Leslie Ann? From your group, nobody in your group has emailed you?
No.
Well, I don't know why they want to email you, but we...
No. You said you're supposed to...
Into the classroom. I put it in, but I'm saying,
Yeah, but
are you not...
I'm not getting any indication of that either.
You're not getting anything?
No.
So did you not turn off your email notification in the settings, go and check the settings. Y'all guys know how to check the settings? Oh, really? Really, really? Hold on, I'm in the wrong thing here. This thing in here. You come here. You've seen this, right? Yeah, you should be seeing this. Where is it? Settings. Oh, oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, because sure, I'll show you after I'm finished. I promise.
I'll remind you.
Of that I have no doubt. Where my thing going now? Where me go? Oh. They just have me all over the place. There we are. I found you back. I lost you. Right. So you guys don't know how to change the settings. Okay. How to stop emails and come to your classroom. Alright, so let's go on here. Where are we in this one here? Oh, I went on to this is actually digitized blooms. Did I cover that? No, sorry. This is again the same topic we're dealing with, but looking at the levels and the verbs and the examples of appropriate assessment. Okay, so just a little idea here. So you have your just remember, understand those are easy ones. Apply activities such as problem sets, performance labs, prototyping, simulations that require students to use, and you have examples of how to apply, analyze the kind of assessments you can do, some recommendations, creating activities such as research-based projects, musical compositions, performance essays, business, blah blah blah. So these are some guidance for you that you can use to help in your assessment design, and you capturing the levels there with your assessment. But key to this is making sure your content is gonna create the opportunity for the students to do this. Content, and as we discussed, exemplars will help them get there. All right, where are we now? So that's just a little thing there. Yeah. And the last thing we have is Bloom's Digital Taxonomy of Verbs. And I found this very interesting because we're in a digital environment, and this document here, this information gives you some idea of the verbs, and you still got the remembering, understanding, apply, analyze, evaluate, create. And it gives you some, down at the bottom here, it gives you some idea in terms of a little more expanded thought in terms of the digital environment. And if I go down a little more, go down a little more, these are some actual, these are a little smaller, these are actual verbs. Bookmarking, bullet pointing, copying, defining, that is the remembering. Let's go up the ladder. Analyzing, advertising, appraising, attributing, breaking down, calculating, categorizing. In creating is very nice. You have adapting, animating, blogging, building, collaborating, compounding, constructing, design, formulating, facilitating. What else do you have there? I'm looking for new words. Annotating, Boolean researches, looking for new exciting digital words, articulating, collecting, appraising, breaking down, deconstructing, So they've tried to use some technology-based type verbs. So you get to expand that a little bit and see what it did there. So that brings us to the end of our My Delivery tonight. I didn't get to, and I thought it'd be too much. Next week I'm going to get to cognitive load and scaffolding, instructional scaffolding. But I want you to get working. Now y'all are comprising several groups. You all comprise several groups 1 to 3, because all the teaching being done. So you all need to, within your groups, kind of begin. I want you to begin to self-select. You all are big people. Self-select a group of 3 or a group of 4. Not all groups are the same size, but kind of self-select and let me know that you have communicated with each other. You know who's in your group because the classroom tell you so. Yeah? So group 1, you go to your forum, you can see who's in your group, and try to self-select a group of 3, no more than 4. Did I say 3 to 4, 3 to 5? I can't remember what I told you, but self-select and let me know who the groups are, who your groups are. Send me an email and I can put it in your classroom, or I can reformat that list into the different groups. And I want you to work with each other on your little projects. Yeah, you all can probably get. It's easier to get 3 of you to get together than me trying to get 15 of you all together to work on something. But I mean, I am willing and able and would be very much appreciate being invited to your little sessions, so I can assist in any way with your deliberations. You have a problem, you have an issue, you don't know how to tackle something. Lean on each other. So self-select into groups. Decide who among you within that small group will lead a group. I think Derwin is going to be a group leader. Dr. Ali is going to be a group leader. I think Leslie Ann is going to be a group leader. I just thrown out names here. Okay? Yeah, so you have to be group leaders just to make sure you're, and I think I gave an indication what the group leader is going to do. Just organize the sessions, make sure you're doing the work, check up on your people. You're peers, and I want you to begin the process of working as peers. You could work, I prefer you work across faculty, but if you want to work within your faculty, across the faculty, get a different perspective, work with people you've never seen before in your life, don't know. But I want you all to work together to tackle your learning outcomes. Some of you will have more work than others, and you can assist each other, nothing wrong with that. And I am open to attend any and all sessions that you are having, but I also want group leaders to let me know, to update me as to what's happening. I'm going to set up a little thing in the Google Drive that you all can give me a little update of what's happening in your group, because I want all the groups are moving along nicely. Okay? How does that sound, people? That sound doable? No? Not well. Silence is consent, right?
It's doable.
But silence is also consent. Okay.
We have just gone through an exercise where we both done our course outline.
Uh-huh.
So how is this going to differ from that?
Are those things perfect?
No, I'm just wondering.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying have a look at your course outline and see if there's any way to improve upon them. Not the course outline, but the objectives. Do you understand what I'm saying? And not, I mean, I sit on the committee, so I tell you, there's not every course went through that. Not every course received that kind of attention. So what I'm saying, have a look at your courses that you teach, Teresa. Have a look at the course outlines. Have a look at the assessments. Have a look at the content, and see if it's up to the standard of the taxonomy, and what can you do to improve upon it. If you're not sure, ask your colleague. This is my outcome. What do you think about it? This is me. Have in your group, have that kind of discussion, that kind of interaction.
It reminds me of a comment organization being made that this is the scripture time doing this course and I'm doing adjustments, so I'm wondering how is it to take in these new adjustments that come forward.
Well, there's only one way to find out. Can you support your adjustments? Can you say, hey, this is the reason why I'm making the adjustment? Because I don't want you to just get on a whim. Say, you know what? According and validate your reasons according to the taxonomy. You can call my name. I'm afraid nobody. I only afraid God. You know, according to taxonomy, according to what this I think is a better way to do it, and justify your reasons. Okay, justify your reasons because you're the one teaching it, eh? You're the one interacting with it. So you're looking at a holistic look. You're looking at the outcomes, make sure they're right, making sure they've worded right, they're not compound or complex outcomes. All the things that we spoke about tonight, make sure they're kind of in line with those things, and make sure the taxonomy is the order is correct. That you're going for, you don't start your first learning outcome doesn't start in creating and make your way all over the shop. It must be an order students can follow the progression of learning. Learning is a stage, is one step to the next. So you got to make sure your outcomes suggest to the students that they are graduating in their learning. They're moving up the line in understanding. And make sure your assessments are tied to your learning outcomes. When I gave you guys assessments, you realize I state the learning outcome that is tied to that. You ever noticed that? No?
I agree with you, and I'm just wondering.
And I'm helping you and helping anybody else like you in your position. I'm just
I'm just asking a question because this is what we have to do. This is what this model could point change. That's all I'm asking.
I am saying you can make a recommendation. So let me skip back up to how we started. Make a recommendation, make a suggestion. All right. So making a tweaking. See, you're not okay. The dilemma for you is this, and let me see if I can explain this. If you tweak a course, a learning outcome, or improve upon it, you're not changing the structure of the course. You're not changing the outcome. As I said here, curriculum modifications must not alter the course module outcomes, but adjust to provide clarity to students in order to improve student learning and achievement in learning outcomes. So you're not adding a new outcome. Well, if you figure that a new outcome is warranted, bring that to the attention of the HOD. If you're teaching something, if a major part of your course, Teresa and anybody else, is not covered by a learning outcome, then something has been missed here. Yeah, and you can point that out. Your HOD doesn't teach a course you're teaching, I don't think, so they may not even be aware of the fact that some of the content does not cover the learning outcome. So bring it to their attention. All is in an effort to make it better for the student. We want students to walk away with a very good experience. All right, but so self-select your groups and let me know by the end of this, by Sunday, what group you're in, who you're with, and I could make the adjustment. I could put you all in groups on the course. Any other questions? But you understand my point. You are looking at all the aspects. You're looking at outcomes. You're looking at content. You're looking at assessments. As I said to you, I identify. If I'm giving you an assessment, I'm identifying an objective that goes along with that assessment. What objective does this assessment, or what objectives, plural, is this assessment measuring? Okay? All right, any other questions? Now is the time. Pile them on. No? No one? All right, great. Not going to be here all night. Thank you for your attendance and your participation. I hope tonight made sense. But I said the material, the notes are going to be in the classroom. So you can go back through them. You have a question, you can reach out to me. I'm here to help you. Help your students to be successful. All right? That's my job, to help you help your students. So we have a successful student population. Yes, Leslie Ann.
Don't forget to help me find this.
Oh, the thingy-majiggy.
Yeah, because I can't find the email with the I opened it, so I know I saw it. The email with the group.
All right.
I don't know what's going on.
I would hardly ever know what's going on with you.
It's not what you think it is. No.
I hardly will know. Trust me. I'm not even sure I want to know. All right, so let me stop presenting. All right, guys. Thanks for being in the session here tonight. I did give a I did indicate that the next one is the next session is next week. I did indicate that. So we look forward to the one next week and then the one thereafter. But I don't think we should we're going past 3 sessions. But this is just the little cheerleading session we do here and give a little pointed information, and then you take it from there and go have a look. You have any questions, reach out to me, reach out to your group. I am here, all right? I'm ad nauseum. All right, have a good night. Leslie Ann, anybody want to stay on how to do the thing? I'm gonna start to present that now. Okay.
Good night,
Flying this
all.
way.
Good night and thanks so much.